Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement. Good day to you and welcome to the program Agriculture on the Move. My name is Phillip Sydney, your host for the next half an hour. Today we're discussing the establishment of a land bank project in St. Lucia. Land bank with meaning agricultural lands. And with me is Mr. Kwesi Goddard, who's an agricultural engineer by profession. He's attached to the engineering unit in the Department of Agriculture, but he's also the coordinator for this land bank project here in St. Lucia. Welcome to the program, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Sydney. My pleasure.
Let me tell you, Kwesi, that topic today is so dear to me. These days I'm getting projects and topics that are so close to me. And the reason for this, when you talk about land bank and agricultural land in St. Lucia, we are losing our agricultural lands very rapidly. And that's concern for me, and I'm sure it's concern for the policymakers in the Ministry of Agriculture and Governance. Okay, we need to do something about it. Okay, I'm happy to hear about this project, and you're the coordinator. To tell us in the first, tell the viewers exactly what is meant by a land bank.
Okay. Good morning, St. Lucia. A land bank, or if we look at it and try to specify a little bit and say an agricultural land bank, is a mechanism that can put in place to ensure that the people or the national interest in agricultural land remains firm, in a sense of preserving agricultural lands from being converted into other uses, and also to preserve the quality and the quantity of land for future generations. So a national land bank is put in place to actually preserve the ability of the country to make available agricultural lands to people who want to get into agriculture, people who have that support. Actually, either they have the technical capabilities, or they have the experience, or they have some kind of other support, and they would like to get into agriculture and they have no access to land. So rather than having lands idle and abandoned and looking on the other side of the coin, we have a rising population. You know, you have also rising food prices, you have the decrease in local production. In an effort for the government to try to support these things, to support the improvement in the efficient use of agricultural land, support also the improvement in the amount of productivity we have on the island, which can actually help us in terms of reducing local food prices, making food available. A land bank is put in place as an appropriate mechanism that can address some of these major problems.
Great. Kwesi, years ago, I'm in the ministry. I was born in the ministry, put it that way. And there's always this land bank policy, but it's just there. I mean, ministers of agriculture have come and gone. You know, some of them are very passionate in wanting to see something happen, but there's always a bottleneck. I don't know exactly what is it, what's causing it, but up to now, we really do not have, agriculture do not have lands. The Ministry of Agriculture do not have lands to say, yes, that has been designated to agriculture. So if there's a project like the YEP project, which is the Youth Agri-Entrepreneurship Project, you can say, okay, they need 60 acres of land, and we can give them 60 acres of land, depending on where the lands are. So we need to have land in our bank, so to speak, so that we can say, hey, go there, use this and use that. It's not there yet.
No.
So with this new project coming on board, give us a little insight into it.
Okay, in one of the major policy documents which speak to the establishment of the National Land Bank is the policy, our national land policy of 2007.
Okay.
In 2007, that's where I first really saw it was articulated in there. And we know how legislation and policy enactment goes in our smaller islands. It normally takes a while before these things can reach into paper. So we can see from just the fact that it has been articulated there that the people of St. Lucia, like you were reiterating at the beginning, over time have been thinking about the importance of preserving our lands for agriculture. So hence, being articulated in 2007, various requests came from the Ministry of Agriculture to help us in terms for seeking assistance in the establishment of a national land bank. So identifying the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, which is an organization with a substantial capacity in terms of administrative and technical capacity to actually help us and even help with the establishment of the land bank. To our great surprise, also the other countries of St. Vincent and Grenada also had similar interests. So the United Nations, through the FAO, realizing that this collective request will come in, decided to assist the region in pilot land bank projects in these three islands, St. Lucia, Grenada, and St. Vincent. Okay. So right now it's like a pilot. So our experience now and our success now can be a story to support the development of land banks in the other smaller islands. Because the other smaller islands, Grenada is half our size, St. Vincent half our size also. And in St. Lucia, well, we know we have 616 square kilometers, 248 square miles. Out of that, you have only 11,000 hectares were classified as agricultural land. But under the 11,000 hectares, which is not really a big number,
of course,
right?
It's not.
Out of that, you have some would be under permanent crops, some would be under annual crops, like 3,000 hectares under annual crops, the rest under permanent crops. But out of that, you also have private lands, and you have state lands or crown lands.
Yes.
Out of these lands, you still have lands which are very degraded and lands which are optimum. So all that with a focus of the land bank project and other projects around land would help us to actually improve our database on land. Because that's where a lot of things, you know, if you don't have GIGO, they call it the GIGO process, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. So if you don't have the right information, then you know your action or your remedy would maybe be futile. So in a sense, we use this project and other projects to improve our land data, improve our ability to manage our lands. Because when we have the right information about the lands, so not only the physical capacity of the land, and not only the administrative capacity of the land in terms of tenureship, how clear is the agreement on tenure is, where are those lands, what are the boundaries, where can we start with actually one, you know, because you have this thing of making lands available. But at the same other part of it, you also have making the best use of this land possible. And we could only make best use of this land if we have the information of this land, about this land, soil type, what the soil can support, the climate in the area, because you know we have the issue of climate change nowadays.
Correct.
So and how will it affect farmers? Because yes, land availability, but you have farmers also who have access to land and maybe have gone out of farming because of other limitations. So these limitations really need to also be brought up in a sense of the land bank is fundamentally, I would say, land administration, agricultural land administration initiative, right, coming from the request of the government of St. Lucia. So it is a national, it is, I would say, an issue of national security and national concern. Because we are losing, I mean, some years ago, when I used to read the statistics on our population, it was 160,000. I say 160,000 up to maybe last week I was in.
Exactly.
Then one time I look at it, 174. We had an inception workshop for this project. We had it on Monday, right? And somebody got up and said it's 183,000. So you find, meanwhile, our agricultural areas are decreasing, our population is increasing.
We have more mouths to feed.
Yes. So we need to really have a a formula in place that,
Yeah.
you know, that we can improve production here in St. Lucia, improve production. We talk about marketing, but we have a population growing also.
Exactly.
So in terms of improving productivity, you know, productivity always limited by a major factor, and that major factor is the most important. Right now, lands is one of the major factors, because we can go in, we can do hydroponics, we can do indoor things, but in our developing country situation, the most valuable asset we have and continue to have is land.
It's a critical land, factor of production. Yeah, it's land, you know, labor, you know, finance and management.
Yes.
That's the factors of production.
Yes.
And that land is critical. We go into a break. When we come back, I want to give us a breakdown in terms of how is that project going to implement its policies, in other words, to see that land bank policy is reached.
Yes.
Okay? You're watching Agriculture on the Move. Stay tuned. We'll be back soon.
Bio means life. Biodiversity is the variety of life all around us. All plants, animals, and microbes, and the places where they live. We need to protect biodiversity so that we can continue to enjoy all the resources it provides. Fresh air, clean water, food, clothing, shelter, and recreation. Biosafety ensures that we protect biodiversity against any negative impacts of GMOs while using it safely for national development.
For more information on the Biosafety Project and how you can be involved, call 451-8746 or 722-9252. Log on to lc.biosafetyclearinghouse.net or join the mailing list slubiosafety@govt.lc.
Welcome back to the program. Kwesi, what does this project entail in terms of reaching the goals and objectives? What is it that, you know, the project is doing to ensure that happens?
Okay, well, one of the primary actions of the project right now is to sensitize major stakeholders and national counterparts. Get all people, all major institutions that are involved in some way or the other in land administration, land tenure, even the use of the land, get all these parties, these stakeholders together on a common ground, on a common footing. Okay. So we've had an inception workshop to bring together heads, and not only heads, farmers, potential land users, get everybody on the same page. And then from there, have actually appraisals to identify, because, you know, coming from the top down, we may miss something. So to get all stakeholders involved, that we may identify what may be the problems that may limit us from achieving that. So this is one of the first things, get everybody on board if what is going on, then we can have the input of the majority into the proper design of this project. That is one. The next point of action, because with these stakeholders, you have stakeholders from physical planning, like we were saying, that you have a lot of them under the same ministry. Yeah. So you have physical planning, you have natural resources, you have crown lands, you have all these people, and with the Ministry of Agriculture and even forestry, you know, get them together, and other institutions like lending institutions, credit unions, get everybody sensitized on that, so that as the land bank becomes established, we can get support from these various parties, because it's a multidisciplinary kind of thing.
Approach, yeah.
Right. And legal affairs, which lies out of our ministry. So legal affairs are the ones that have that access to even, because when you come to land tenure and land tenure governance, and it comes to issues of land legislation, you know, legal affairs is very important, because to draft out and to clarify what will be the range, the terms of agreement in terms of land use, and make sure no party is dissatisfied. Nobody thinks that, oh, they're going to take my land, you know. Your right is preserved. So the first thing is to get all these stakeholders and counterparts in agreement and on the same page with going forward with the project. The underground aspect of it right now is actually identifying 2 pilot areas. We did identify 2 pilot areas where we would start this land bank, and we hope to over the next 18 months, because the initiative has a life of 18 months. But with the government support, supposed to be a
Yeah, continuous
Right,
process.
a continuous
Yes,
process.
yes,
But the intervention of the FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, is for over
18 months.
18 months. So we've just begun, and we've identified two pilot areas. One pilot area in Region 2 that is in Babono, and another pilot area in Region 3, which is Mabuya Valley.
Okay.
So within these areas, we identify what is the exact boundaries of what do we have to work with. And then from there, we start to go through the process of establishing what will be the understanding, the price list rates and all that, and get some farmers involved here in this pilot project to make our mistakes, get better at it, and from that area, once we can have a proper pilot land bank administration going on there, then we could go to the other regions and start the same thing.
So have you started working with the in those areas in terms of sensitization?
Yes, we have.
Having town hall meetings and stuff like this?
Yes, we have.
What's the feedback like?
We've had some participatory rural appraisals with farmers in Region 2 and Region 3, where farmers voiced their concerns, and they also identified what were the issues they would think that would be a hindrance to the project. They made reference to various uses they had in mind, right? And they felt that the project was a very timely project. Yes, they felt they really supported the project in that sense, and they were also invited to the inception workshop. So we really want to keep farmers well aware, and also not only farmers, interested potential farmers. You have many students coming out of agriculture that may desire to, so we need all that, because students coming out of agriculture, when they study agriculture, they will come up with many things in their mind, things that we may overlook. So apart from just the intellectual process of it, is also the ability to make these lands available for people that can support.
Because in fact there is a second phase to the YEP project, the Youth Agri Entrepreneurial Project. And we had a tour with the Minister with responsible for agriculture, Honorable Ezekiel Joseph, and we went to Maki Estate. And the whole idea is to look for lands. The project was looking at expanding the banana acreages, looking at production.
Yes.
And there we were talking about using, again, young people who we believe who want to get into agriculture. Okay, and so that is a process that's already started. So I'm happy to hear that it's in the Babono area.
Yes.
The other question I want to ask is the land tenure system. That has been a problem in this country for decades. You have family who own lands, and some of them have migrated for years. If those lands are identified, they have the suitable qualities for agriculture, the factors of production. How is it that you can get the use of those lands?
Well, since we're starting with the crown lands, because crown lands, because even though in terms of information, in terms of finding out exactly where is agriculture, exactly where is the jurisdiction of the Ministry of Agriculture to invest lands into agriculture, you have that from, clarifying that whole process with crown lands. We hope that we can also develop our ability to deal with private lands. Now, in dealing with private lands, we actually identify family land as a topic by itself, because we know family land most times is considered as if family land has no owner, because of, you have all these people over the land. It's like we own the land together, but you alone cannot sell the land, or you alone cannot lease, or how easy it is for the family to come to a collective agreement to say, okay, we will put our lands in agriculture. So,
you want to know my answer to that? Strictly draconian, If it gets to the point whereby those lands are required, say urgently for agriculture to reduce our food import bill and for our food security, acquire the lands. The government has but the only thing is whether the government have the resources, the financial capability to actually, pay off those persons. Because if the lands are sitting there, nothing is happening. Okay, so get the monies, value the land, and put the money in the treasury for you. All right. So whatever happens, let you all deal with it from a financial point of view.
Yes.
But at the same time, that land now is being put into use.
Yes.
You know, it's for me, it's draconian. But sometimes you have to take some draconian steps to ensure that, you know, we preserve our country's food security.
Yes.
And the preservation of our youngsters coming after, to ensure, because they'll ask you the question, you know, what did you do while you were there? We are the stewards, you know.
Yes.
So we need to take serious decisions. Too much of our lands have gone down. Cul-de-sac, for example, my cul-de-sac, I mean, and that was a unilateral decision that was taken by planning, right, to shift those lands from agriculture to commercial. And by the time they're fighting as young officers, trying to say no. For us, what you're fighting for, but the thing is already gazetted. You know, so we're fighting a losing battle, which was unfair, because if agriculture is supposed to be part and parcel of the other stakeholders to ensure that we preserve our lands, or there is discussion to ensure that, you know, whatever happens, it happens, you know, as a collective agreement. If it becomes unilateral, then it's a problem. So we need to stop that now.
Yes.
So the three main valleys in St. Lucia, and people from history, is Cul-de-sac, Roseau, and the Mabria Valley. Cul-de-sac is gone, but kudos to some of the farmers who are still in agriculture. I have a passion for these things. I must say kudos to them. Yes. You know. But tomorrow, if they decide they want money in their hands, quick money, they might just sell it, or we can't tell them no. And that's the reality of the fact. We are due for another break. Stay tuned.
There are many opportunities in agriculture, and broiler production is one such enterprise. For further information, contact the Veterinary and Livestock Division at 468-5621.
Welcome back to the program. Kwesi, I get very worked up when it comes to lands. Because, you know, it's a passion for me, because I've seen, you know, people in this country who have financial resources and they are speculating when it comes to lands. You know, they see an opportunity, they buy land, okay? And they sit on it, hoping that somewhere down the line, and they buy prime agricultural land, and hoping someday there's going to be a change of use for them to jump on it, whether it's for commercial or whether it's for housing. Yes. It's the primary purpose for them is to make money. I'm not faulting them for that. I mean, that's their right. Yeah. But the point, it is also the government's right and responsibility to ensure that those lands remain in agriculture. Yes. Right? Those farmers that you mentioned off camera that who own lands and they maybe cannot really, they don't have the resources to farm it, because sometimes the lending institutions are a bit really hard on them, so they cannot get monies, you know, to actually work those lands. If there is some way where they can go through a lease to purchase, a young, you know, Sir Arthur Lewis graduate want to go into it, and maybe he can get some monies from SLDB. He can go to an arrangement with the farmer, and then some kind of agreements. So at least the land is put into agricultural use. Yes. You know. So I don't know whether this is one of the things that your project is looking at. Yes. You know. And what are the other? You say it's for 18 months, but during that 18 months, where does it stop? Where does it stop and the government continues?
Well, it actually, the first stage actually stops from the up and running, the establishment of these pilot sites. That we want the pilot sites that we have selected to be up and running, in a sense of that you have that lease and payment system going on good. You have the farmer comes in with his own investment, and you have the Ministry of Agriculture supporting his production. Okay. So that, in a sense, in my mind, we can justify the opportunity cost of using that land. Rather than that land just lying there. Correct. That this person is making the best use of the land possible, and the structures in place, because the ministry has a lot of structure in place. It's just the synergy. That's right. The structure in place to support this farmer to get the most efficient use of his land. The next aspect of it is the marketing. Actually, marketing and the legal part, the administrative part, and the marketing part is actually the next part, where we start to look into markets, secure markets for farmers from early out. So even if you own the land, based on the potential of the land in terms of soil and atmosphere, or soil and climate and slope, based on what it can support, right? And based on what is on the market,
That's right.
we can come up with a proper production schedule for farmers, you know, also leaning on the support of the extension services, come up with that so that farmers may not only have the incentive of land to produce, but also they have the incentive of the markets. They have the incentive of technical support, you know, in terms, because in leasing lands, you expect them to pay.
Okay.
And from the top-down approach, that would be the most important thing. But in terms of getting the whole system to work and to be sustainable, to continue, we need the other supports in place also. We need the other supports in terms, yes, market, but market is far. When you watch on the farm.
Market is down the road.
Yeah,
the point is to establish what we need now.
Yes. And to have it in the production, the limitations to production, which we try to remove the land one in these pilot areas. The other ones, we still have to be mindful of them because banana farmers had access to lands and they went out of production still.
That's right.
So we still have to be a little mindful of what are the other limitations. Because in my view, for example, bananas need to try an alternative system, alternative systems of input use. Because the inputs on the market are so high and they have alternative inputs, we can produce here ourselves. So if we try to have some kind of comparative study to realize, hey, can we reduce our cost of production here? So it wouldn't just be going and redo the same old system to experience in the shorter run the same old problems.
And then to plant the crops that are suited for the environment.
Exactly.
Your soil types. You cannot go and plant a plant that where irrigation is required all year round and go and plant it in an area where that is dry and there's no irrigation. So I think that and the other thing too, I was just thinking last night, you know, why lands for agriculture, for housing and commercial are being, the agricultural land is zeroed in on for that purpose.
Yes.
And when you leave, for example, Laka in Dennery, especially on the right side going towards Fondor, that whole hill there going all the way up to the prison.
Yes, yeah.
That can go into housing. Those are, for me, those are, a lot of these lands are scrublands.
Yes, yes.
Right? I mean, there is some measure of agricultural activities there, but, but the soil type does not lend itself for the agronomic practices of the crops that you really want to grow.
There's a bit dry too.
But that's the point I'm making, all right? So can they use that for housing?
Of course.
And if you go like that, the list goes all the way down, all the way down to Miku, you know. So there is land for house. So why the problem and the stress and all of this is on agricultural lands? That's my problem. Final words from you because we're ending.
Okay, well, you know, I would like to say, well, a people and a country, a nation that can become self-sufficient by the development of agriculture can look to the future with confidence, because agriculture is one of the first fundamental prerequisites for industrial and other developments. And at the root of the expansion of agricultural development is land and the access to land.
That's right.
So this project, this initiative could not have come at a more opportune time, and it is deserving of our national focus and our national efforts, because it's not only for us, it's for our future generations, the unborn ones. You know? So we want them to remember us, look back, maybe, and say, oh, they were really thinking of us, you know, they really had us in mind.
That's right.
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, man. Kwesi, thank you for being here.
Yes,
I wish you success, man, and I know it will be challenging, but however, at the end of the day, the young ones can say, we did something, or we tried something, right, to secure our food security. You've been watching Agriculture on the Move. I want to thank you, the viewers, for viewing, and that's an important topic we had today, because it's the future for your children and your grandchildren. We need to do it, start now. I've been hearing about this land bank thing for eons, and nothing is happening. So I'm happy to hear and to see that something is being done, and to ensure that our agricultural lands are protected, people. We can go into housing in other scrubland areas, and we have enough lands for that. So please leave our agricultural lands alone. Please, those persons who are speculating and they have money and they can buy out, you know, certain persons to go and buy agricultural land. Thank you again for viewing. I'm Phillip Sydney saying goodbye and see you again. Thanks, comrades.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.
Agriculture on the move.
Agricole en mouvement.